problems. It's asking you to find domain and range. Domain you're familiar with, it's a set of all x values, left to right, that are defined on the function. So we think about putting up those two walls and saying that the entire graph is captured between those two walls. So looking at 180, you might think first you're going negative 1 to 4, but because it's a parabola, you know it's going to keep going to the left, keep going to the right. So we would say negative infinity to positive infinity. All real numbers. For part B, if you tried to capture this with two walls, you might say negative 10 to 3, but you know that this type of graph actually will continue to the left. So instead for our domain on this one, you would say negative infinity to exactly 3, so use a bracket here. So you're finding domain, describing that by putting up those two walls, left to right, and the entire graph exists between those two walls. Well, for range, it's the set of all y values represented on the graph. So this time, you're thinking bottom to top. So think instead of putting up walls, try to place a floor and a ceiling and saying that the entire graph exists between that floor and that ceiling. So if I look at part A, maybe at first you'd say I'll put a floor here at negative 10 and put a ceiling here at 2. You're close, but that parabola continues downward to negative infinity. So you really can't put a wall or a floor there. So for our range, we would say negative infinity from the bottom to exactly 2 at the top. Always bottom to top for the range. For part B, you can definitely put a floor on this one. For the ceiling, it might look like it's around 5, but this type of graph again continues upward. So instead, you'll say for range, we're at a y value of 0 at the bottom, bracket, and then it continues upward, positive infinity at the top. So now if you move on to part 2, now this is something a little bit different. Now we want to describe the intervals where this function is increasing, decreasing, or constant. So this is actually more like domain again. So you're back to thinking about this left to right, all the x values for this type of problem. For this, instead of describing, putting up two walls that capture the entire graph, you're putting up walls that capture little portions of the graph. Capture the portion that's just increasing. Capture the portion that's just increasing or constant. Again, for these, you're thinking of it similar to domain, so make sure you're going left to right. And make sure that you're also using x values. For this type of problem, you will not need to use any brackets because you'll see in a little second here that these little breaking points between these two portions of the graph where it switches from decreasing to constant, for example, it's just a breaking point or a transition point. You really can't say that it's decreasing or increasing at that exact point, so only parentheses. All right, here we go. So looking at part A, we are going to, again, think of this as domain, but almost like 3 separate domains. So for starting at the left, I can see that this graph is decreasing. And I need to give the interval and say from where to where. I can see from negative infinity to negative 3. Continue moving to the right. Now it is constant. So I'll write that, constant, but I need the interval. I need to say from where to where. From the negative 3 to the 4. Again, make sure you're using x values for this type of problem. Now continue moving to the right. Now you see your graph is going up, so it's increasing. But tell me where it's increasing. From left to right. It's increasing from 4 to positive infinity. Okay, if we go on to the other two, just keep in mind it doesn't necessarily have to have decreasing, increasing, and constant. It may only have one type. Maybe it has only 2. So you look at part B, again, start at the left-hand side. And this one increases first. And tell me where it increases from negative infinity to 2. Then, it's constant.
But you need to say for which x values it's constant, left to right. So you can see from the 2 to positive infinity. Finally, part C, again starting at the left and moving across the graph. You see there this is increasing. The interval would be negative infinity to negative 4. And then it switches. If we continue to the right, it's decreasing from the negative 4 to positive infinity. So apply these concepts to the assignment today. Thanks and good luck.